I see your 3D printed skid steer and up you a fully 3D printed CJ7. Hello everyone. It's been a while. I have just got the desk freshly cleaned for this video that I am quite excited about. I'm very excited about this video. Why, you might ask? It's because it's something different. And there's going to be a big overarching theme in this, and it's going to be 3D printing. And to highlight 3D printing in this hobby, well, let me just go ahead and get it on the bench. That is a fully 3D printed and functional. You can see the mess of wires in there prove that it's functional. And the motor in there as well. Fully 3D printed and functional CJ7. And when I say fully 3D printed, I'm saying like 95%. There are things you have to provide that aren't 3D printed, such as the screws and hardware, the internals for the 3D printed axle housings, drive shafts, and shocks. I put on these axial deadbolt takeoff wheels and tires, but within the files, if you're feeling froggy, you can 3D print bead locks and put your own tires on there. I haven't gone that way because of the hub design, but I don't want to get ahead of myself when talking about design and assembly. I just want to show this off because this is amazing, because the files are free. These files didn't cost me anything. It just cost me what filament I used to print it and the hardware and bearings and parts, the engineering behind it. I'll get into it more in depth, but this is 3-link. Okay, this is scale. This has a panhard and a drag link, so this isn't 4-link tomfoolery. This is fully scale and 3-link. There's engineering that went into this. The little, and you can hear pops when they come apart, the little hood latches. There is a little hood latch built in there as well. So there's 3 points of connection for the hood. There is a full-on interior that is functional. There's seats, and then I'll turn it around and show this off. And take this little cap off here at the fuel cell, and the tailgate comes out for your battery tray. I'll get into that a little bit later, but I just want to show this off because files are free. I got to remind you about that. The files are free. But just to get into this build a little bit, I got so much to go over. It's kind of hard to keep my mind straight. I have printed this multi-material. If you go through the creator's website, who is Black Crow, sorry it took me so long to shout you out, by the way. If you go through the creator's website and pages, there is a whole write-up about this, and instructions, and mods, and tips and tricks, and everything that you need to know about this truck. The super cool thing about it is it's totally customizable. There is, I guess, what you would call a base model that you can build. I did not build that. I did the high clearance mod, which gives you a crap ton of clearance underneath the truck. Normally, Your transfer case sticks down to about where my hand is. So I didn't want any of that. But if you're into scale driving, it's super nice. That's just scratching the surface. You can add four-wheel steer to this. You can put a steering axle in the rear, and it's all integrated. It's all engineered out and planned into the chassis. Do you not like the way this cage works? You can put a hard top on there, and there are attachment points already built into the tubs to put your hard top on. You want doors? They have doors, and there are little pockets for the door to latch into. There's even accessories. I think with the hard top, you get a spare tire mount and little jerry can attachments to bolt onto the back of the tailgate to make it look even more scale. I think there's even a half cab that redesigns this cage, stops it back here, and gives it a little truck bed back here. I feel like I'm forgetting something. As well as accessories, there are fully 3D printed trailers you could build with this. That is also on Black Crow's Printables website. All for free. Getting into the build, again, like I said, I got way off track gushing about this thing. I got so much to talk about in this video. I printed this in multi-material. The creator of this vehicle, in his long instructions, designs and semi-suggests doing this in PLA. Now, me, from my standpoint, I don't. But also, this is like a proof of concept. The only thing on this truck that's PLA is the lid for this cooler. The lime green on the cooler itself is PETG. The seats, center console, and little detail work that you see is all PETG in black. Little rails right here running into the front fender are carbon fiber PETG. The cage I'm really proud of, even though it looks like a stringy mess. This is TPU, and also the front bumper is TPU as well. The body panels and tub are ABS in this beautiful, I don't know if it'll come through, but there's a slight sparkle, olive drab, army green ABS that I picked up. I think this is Polymaker, which is the filament of choice here at the RC Underdog. Now, to get a little deeper into the engineering, I'll have some nitpicks. Number one is Mr. Black Crow. I'm not going to print a lot of stuff in PLA. I apologize. But for the life of me, I cannot get my steering wheel to break the supports. The one that's in here is super glued. So any suggestions in the comments section would be greatly appreciated, other than yelling at me for printing this in PETG. Other than that, other than that small gripe, the engineering on this is impeccable. I know it would take me 10 years to get to this point and it would look half as good. So, round of applause for the designer on this. This is amazing. To flip it over and show underneath that yes, this is fully 3D printed. These chassis rails are 3D printed and bolt together. These suspension links are 3D printed. These are nylon because I don't trust PETG or anything else. So I printed these out of nylon. Transmission is super unique. It is good for what this project is, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's going to like revolutionize this hobby. It's belt driven off of the little sprockets that 3D printers use. I'm not going to say you can go out here and win a comp with it, but I'm just going to trail this truck, so it is perfectly fine in this vehicle. Now, would I like to see an actual transmission in here? Yes, I have, spoiler alert, I have another one in waiting to try some ideas I have out for a V2, an Underdog V2, if you will. But I'd like to try to put an SSD scale transmission in here. I think that would fit. Now, you would have to have an offset front axle, but we'll get to all that. But this transmission isn't bad for what this is. I don't have any complaints. Actually, I do have one complaint. This shaft right here, the shafts in that transmission are all cut to length and drilled by you. And there's instructions with it. There's even a handy dandy little tool that is along with the files that help you do what you need to do, along with 5mm brass rod that you order for this project. Now, my second complaint, I just remembered, you cut one rod this length, and then you cut another rod this length, and then you file it flat and drill it from the other end to make your connections for your drive shafts. That second shaft, number one, in my opinion, is too long. Number two, is a pain in the butt to drill these holes straight. Ask me how I know. Getting back underneath it, you can see some of the shock angles. This one is leaned forward for some clearance and articulation. Oh, it doesn't seem to have very bad bump steer either. Very good job on that. But also here in the rear, there were originally, where did those go? There were originally these shock hoops in the rear, and I don't know if you could see that or not. Those pivot the shock forward, and personally, I didn't know how to feel about both of the shocks leaning in towards each other. So these shock towers are for the four-wheel steer mod, and they straighten the shock up a lot more. And I like the look of it a lot better. But to me, it's only aesthetics and my picky mind that affects. If you print the normal shock hoops that bolt in there and have the shock laid down like that, it should be fine. Now, as far as shocks themselves, you can have either 90 mil or 100 mil. And what I have on here is 100 mil. And that gives you full clearance. And also just to set it down here real quick, gives you about a fist, maybe a teeny tiny more, but it gives you a fist of flex. It being at 100 mil shocks puts you back at a normal ride height and suspension travel of a normal hobby grade truck. I had 90 mils on here and it sat right here, but it also gave you that much travel. So it all depends on your preference. I could have happily ran the 90 mils because I have some pretty extreme terrain out here. I'm having trouble figuring out where I'm going to go out and drive this. I don't know about you, but I like travel. I like travel. I usually like about 5.5 to 6 inches of travel because I'm a crazy person. It usually isn't enough flex unless I can fit my phone under the wheel. But anyway, getting back into the truck. As far as electronics, I have a difficult time getting this hood open with the clearance of this front bumper. As far as electronics, I have a 1080, a random Tekin motor I got from RC Chop Shop, and a Radio Link receiver. That is a mess of wires up there. I'm not really going to call this a gripe. I'm going to call it an interesting observation that yes, you can use brush motors in here. Throughout the instructions, there is a lot of encouragement to use a Hobbywing Fusion SE 1200 kV, and I also highly suggest that as well. I just don't have one laying around or have the funds to pick one up yet. But I took this on a quick spin around the house. It's fine. The motor doesn't heat up, but the 1080 does. The interesting part of it is that the designer wants you to run the wires through a little cutout in the frame. I actually think it's over here. Let me see if I can get that in frame. There's a little cutout in the frame where they want you to run the battery leads back to this point. And then this slide out battery tray bolts down like a shorty pack that you would use in drift with bullet style connectors. So when with your battery, with your ESC lead bolted down right here, you put your bullet style connector through here and bolt it to the back of this. So when that goes together like that, it also plugs the vehicle in. I currently have it set up where this ESC tray is holding a 2200 for me because I do want to run this lead all the way back there, but I want to do it my way. Kind of don't like the fact you have to bolt the battery in. So I would like it to be a lot more user friendly to where I can use different batteries if I want. So my plan is to redesign these to be like a little tray where a battery strap goes through, and then this just plugs into an extension that's loose in here like this, and you can kind of just like tuck it like that, and then your battery will be velcroed in and just slide it in. But that's just me. If you follow his directions, it's really painless and simple from what I've seen. And there is a ton, a ton of documentation on this vehicle for videos and assembly and tips and tricks. Well, maybe not the last one. There's plenty out there to build this truck how you want it. See how nice and neat that 2200 fits up there? It just doesn't make the hood area look nice. Now, some astute viewers may notice that this isn't done, and it's not, because this is 95% complete to me. I just want to get out and drive it already, but there's little 5% that I need to do, like that little running of the wire back to the rear like I want to. It does not have headlights or marker lights yet because I just found out today there's a mod for the grill to accept headlights. It also doesn't have tail lights because I haven't printed them yet. There's also a little license plate that goes back there too that I need to print. There's a filler cap for the fuel cell that I haven't printed yet because I don't have gray filament for that. But it's just little odds and ends. To me, this is ready to run and ready to test, and I can get those things done in situ. But if I could have one suggestion for the designer, Mr. Black Crow, is could we have like a little engine cover to bolt onto the motor cover, I think is what it's called, on the transmission to make it a little more scale? You probably are already working on that. I just would think that, especially with something like the Fusion SE, it would be super cool to have like a little inline four motor cover that bolts on as well to make it super duper scale underneath here. But then also that probably cramps up electronics fit underneath here. But then again, if you run a Fusion SE 1200, that would probably free up some space as well. But that's just me. Would I suggest people go out and print this and start making their own? Yes, 2 thumbs up from the RC Underdog. For beginners, I would still suggest this, but I would also suggest just following the instructions. Build the axles as recommended. Use the recommended 100 mil shocks. Build the basic transmission with the low clearance. Just build it how the instructions say and then take it from there, because you have the printer already. Because also, this seems like the perfect kind of project to get a 3D printer for. Because I hear a lot of people within this hobby, not even out of the hobby, that still don't have a 3D printer. And with a project like this, I want to ask it to my community. What's your excuse now? You can print a truck from the ground up now. What's your excuse of why you don't have one? If it's price, I have found Ender 3s locally on Facebook Marketplace for $60. It gets you in the door. Even if you have to print it at a PLA, I'm not going to judge you. I just would recommend against it. I personally can't think of any other reason why not to print this if you have a printer. And if not, please go get one. Now, I'm probably going to go drive this, break it into 15 pieces, and then curse it and throw it in the trash. But no, I think I've printed it well enough to where it's San Diego Trail ready. I'm going to stop rambling and gushing about this thing, and we're going to go do that. We're going to take it out on the trail. Some people that still unfortunately use YouTube Premium, you can tell them all day long to use the Brave browser, but sometimes it's just an uphill battle. They're not going to understand. But to me, this free thing is amazing, and I want to share it with everybody. And I also encourage everybody that can, please try to print one of these. So again, I'm going to stop rambling, and we're going to get this thing out on the trail in the next video.